Welcome or welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I am going to be teaching you guys how to do amigurumi crochet. This is a quick crash course on learning all the basics of this technique of crochet, and hopefully you'll be able to make wonderful things. So amigurumi is the Japanese art of crocheting or knitting small stuffed toys, often disguised as animals, dolls, or fantasy characters. So this word combines the word ami, meaning crochet or knitted, and nugurumi, meaning stuffed doll. So it originated in Japan and gained global popularity in the 2000s, and I'm so glad it did. I have made so many crochet things with this technique. Alright guys, so without any further ado, let's get right into today's video. So before we even get started on the actual crocheting, I am going to go through all the equipment that you need. So you could refer to this as an amigurumi starter pack. So this is everything that you need to get started with amigurumi, and all these things that I'm listing are relatively cheap as well. I'll link some places down below where you can get these things. So first and foremost, we're going to need some stuffing. So amigurumi is all about making plushies, animals and dolls. So to give it the shape that we need, to give it that 3D shape, we're going to need to stuff it. And I actually use old pillows, or sometimes I actually go out and buy like plain cushions and then cut them open and then just get the stuffing out of there. But wherever you get your stuffing from is perfectly fine. Even recycling old blankets and everything, it's perfectly fine as long as you have something to put inside your crochet piece. And then you're going to need some crochet hooks. So with amigurumi, we tend to use some chunky yarn, and I'm going to show you guys the yarn in a little bit. So you're going to need a 5.5mm and a 6mm, but if you're not using chunky yarn, then you want to just get a regular crochet hook or whatever your yarn requires. So a lot of yarn, like basic acrylic yarn, requires a 4mm crochet hook. So when you're just starting out, don't get like too caught up with choosing your crochet hooks. Just get one that you can use for everything, because this was me when I first started crocheting. I literally had one 4mm pink crochet hook and I was able to create so many different things. So don't stress too much about having a 6mm or 5mm, but the more you practice crocheting, the more you'll realize what hook size you need. But if you're using plush yarn, then that's when these come in handy, because they do tend to be a little bit chunky. In today's video though, we're going to be using a 4mm crochet hook just to make everything really easy. We are also going to be needing some tapestry needles. This is a must when it comes to amigurumi, because when you're making animals or dolls, like I mentioned before, we have to sew the pieces together. There are some no-sew amigurumi projects that you can do, but if you want to deepen your knowledge and your understanding, having tapestry needles to sew the pieces together is very handy. And then, as always, for any crochet projects, we're going to need a good pair of scissors, just something to cut the yarn nice and cleanly. Stitch markers really come in handy when doing this type of crochet, because it's really hard to identify where your first stitch is. And I've been doing amigurumi for about a year now, and even now it's hard for me to locate the stitches, so having these is really important. And I actually only bought these stitch markers recently. I used to use safety pins. You can also use bobby pins, or just something that you can mark where your first stitch is, so you don't necessarily need these. And one thing about crochet is that you can relatively use whatever you have around the house. You don't have to always go out and buy things. So this was a very recent purchase for me. I've been using safety pins for almost a year now, so I just got them because, you know, why not? When making animals or characters, we're going to need eyes so we can give them a nice face. So you're going to need whatever eyes. You can use felt, you can use these safety eyes. These are just plastic eyes that you insert into your stitches, and then you put a backing on there so the eyes cannot be pulled out. And this is very important, especially if you're giving it to like a baby or a toddler. The eyes won't come out, so they won't, you know, put it in their mouth or something. And then you're also gonna need some noses. So I use these for my crochet bunnies. I think it's really, really cute. And also I use these for my crochet teddy bears. But again, these are not really that important, but I would recommend having these in your amigurumi starter pack, especially since they're not really expensive at all. I'll try and link everything that I have in this little pack in the description box below so you can buy it yourself. And also the noses and the eyes, like I mentioned, have these backings so they can't pull off. Like, you can use the same backings for the nose that you use for the eyes as well. Another thing I forgot to mention was that if you don't want to use safety eyes, you can always use felt and glue. That does give a really nice look, but I've never used it before, but I've seen many people use it, so it is definitely a method that you could try out, especially if you just, you know, don't feel like putting these in and clamping these things together. You can just cut a bit of felt and use some glue. So there are alternatives to this. And then lastly, we're going to need some sticky notes and a pen. So this is going to be very helpful later on, and I'll explain to you guys why. But for now, we're just going to need this, and you'll know why in a little bit. Okay, so this is everything in our amigurumi starter pack. So now we can start discussing the yarns and then get right into crocheting our first amigurumi project. Here is all the plush yarn that I have on hand right now, and the more you crochet and the more you make different animals and different dolls and different toys, the more you'll realize what yarn you need specifically. So this is the yarn that I use for my teddy bears. No, I literally use this for all my teddy bears, and I've only used this type of yarn as well. I had to buy a lot in bulk so I can make teddy bears for gifts, or if there's a market coming up, I can quickly sell those. So I have like 8 of these. It's really soft. It's like a velvet yarn, and it doesn't really need a large crochet hook either. It needs like a 4 or 4.5 millimeter crochet hook. So this is really handy to use, especially if you don't have a large variety of crochet hooks like I mentioned before. And here we have this really chunky yarn. I think this needs an 8 millimeter crochet hook, which is really large, and it's really thick. As you can tell, I have not even used it. I've just had it rolled up because I just couldn't be bothered to work with this. It's really stiff and it's really hard to work with. Maybe it's because I don't really have the right size crochet hook, but maybe I will use this in the future. I have attempted to use it, that's why it looks a bit crazy, but I actually haven't made anything with this. But when it comes to these really soft yarns, like guys, you can even see on camera, these are so cozy. And I recently used these two to make a crochet shark for my little brother, and it turned out really nice. And for this yarn, I used a 6 millimeter crochet hook or a 5.5. And then I have this yarn over here. I made a rabbit using this yarn. I think it would be really cute if you could make a teddy bear with this yarn, but the only downside is that it's really hard to see the stitches. And then this is very similar to these two, but as you can see, the texture is a little bit different, and this is actually yarn that's used for baby blankets, so it's good for baby skin, and it's very good for sensitivity because you don't want to have an itchy blanket on like a newborn baby. That would be a disaster. So when it comes to choosing plush yarn, I would 100% recommend this type of yarn. I will link this in the description box below. I stand by this yarn. It's so amazing, and it comes in so many different colors. Although it is on the pricier side, this is like £4.50 each, which is crazy. That's why I only have 2. But yeah, it's really expensive. But if you're really into amigurumi and you start selling your things, then maybe it would be a very good investment. But even as a beginner, just buy 1 or 2 just to try out. It's really nice. So that is everything that you're going to need to start your amigurumi journey. So today, to learn the stitches and the techniques, we are going to be making a ball, just a simple sphere. And this is going to teach you so many different skills and the complete basics of amigurumi. Once you master this, you can basically make any amigurumi projects, any plushie, which is so exciting to even think of. So if you're just new to regular crochet, if you know the basics of regular crochet, like double crochet, single crochets, and all of that, we are going to be learning a couple new techniques today. But don't be scared, it's literally very simple. It's just like variations of what you already know. One thing to keep in mind before we start this project is that you should not give up. You should keep trying, because once you learn this technique and you already know how to do like basic crochet, your skill level is going to increase so much. Like, you can make so many things. The possibilities are endless. Alright guys, so I am just going to be using some regular yarn. I'm not using any plush yarn, just so we can keep it simple today. So you want to grab your yarn too, and we're going to make this ball together in this video. And for this yarn, I'm going to need a 4mm crochet hook, and we're also going to need what I mentioned previously, except for the stuffing and the safety eyes. Except for the safety eyes, we're going to need the stuffing so we can make it look like a sphere. Okay, so to start this pattern, we are going to make 6 single crochets inside a magic circle. I know it sounds a little bit complicated, especially with that magic circle, but it really isn't. Okay, so you're going to grab these 2 fingers that are closest to your thumb, and then you're going to place your yarn over your finger like this. Then you're going to cross it over like so. You have an X shape, and then when you flip your fingers over, there is no X, and this is what you want. You don't want it crossing over on both sides. So once you have that down, you can let go, and then we're going to get our crochet hook and then grab this loop at the back. And now you want to twist your crochet hook so the yarn becomes secure. And this is what your magic circle should look like. Feel free to replay this clip as many times as you need so you can get the basics down and so you can practice. So once you have your shape like this, we're going to just pull it tight. So you're going to pull the yarn that's connected to the ball of yarn, and then we're going to adjust our grip so we can hold the yarn properly. Okay, so once you have done that, we're going to chain 1 to secure. And this is our magic circle complete. I know it sounds and looks really simple, but it does take a bit of practice, especially when it comes to handling it. We don't want to unravel the entire thing. Okay, so now what we need to do is insert 6 single crochets. When you start reading a lot of crochet patterns, you'll begin to realize that they all start the same. You always need like 6 to 8 single crochets inside a magic circle. Okay, so we're going to insert our hook, pull up a loop until we have 2 loops on our crochet hook. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops. So this is our first single crochet, and we're going to go again, insert our hook, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and here we have 2 single crochets inside our magic circle. I'm going to do one more with you guys. Insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and here we have 3. So now we need to do 3 more, so we have a total of 6. Once we have 6 single crochets, we're going to close the magic circle. So you should have a loose piece of thread inside the circle that we're going to pull tight, and you can twist your stitches just so they don't fold and curl up too much. So you want to pull that really tight until the circle is closed completely. And this is what it should look like. You want to ensure that your stitches aren't too tight because we're now going to be working in all 6 of these single crochets. So we want to make 6 increases. So we're going to insert our hook into our first single crochet that we made in the round, and then we're going to pull up a loop and then yarn over and pull through both of those loops. So that's our first single crochet, and then we're going to just remove our hook, grab one of our stitch markers and put it right where we made the first stitch, and then we're going to close it up like so. So that is not an increase, that is just a single crochet inside our first single crochet of the round. So to make an increase, that just means put 2 single crochets in each hole. So here we just have 1. So right in the same hole here, we're going to insert our hook, pull up a loop, and then yarn over. And here we have 2 single crochets. And now moving on to the next stitch, we're going to insert 2 single crochets into the same space, and that is what an increase is. And then in the next one, we're going to put in 2 single crochets, yarn over, pull through 2, insert your hook back into that same position, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. And then we're going to do that in the rest of the stitches here, not the one inside the stitch marker because that's where we already inserted our increase. So in the next stitch, 2 single crochets in the same space until we reach the stitch marker. Now that we have increased in every single stitch, we're now going to start round 2. So each round begins when you reach the stitch marker. So we're going to remove the stitch marker, and then for round 2 we have to make a single crochet and then an increase. So where I just had my stitch marker, I'm going to put in a single crochet, and then we're going to mark that area once again to signify the beginning of our round. And then in the next stitch we're going to make an increase, which is 2 single crochets in the same space. So that's 1 back in the same hole, and that is 2. And now in the next stitch we're just going to make a single crochet, so no increases. And then in the stitch right after we're going to make an increase. So you're going to repeat the pattern of a single crochet and then an increase until you reach the stitch marker. So I just did an increase. So now in the next stitch I need to make a single crochet. This round should end with an increase. So in the stitch just before the stitch marker, we're gonna put in an increase. And that is round 3 complete. As you can see, it's getting a lot bigger because of the increases. The increases increase the amount of stitches because you're doing 2 in each. So in the first round we did 6 single crochets inside the magic circle, and then in the second round we did a round of increases. So it went from a stitch count of 6 to 12. So every time you make an increase, this will get a lot bigger. Okay, so for the next round we're going to do 1 single crochet and an increase to start off. So we're going to remove our stitch marker. In the next stitch here, in the stitch where we had our stitch marker, we're going to make a single crochet, and then we're going to grab our stitch marker again and then place it where we just made that single crochet to mark the start of the round. And then in the next stitch we're going to do an increase, like so. And now we're going to repeat the pattern of 2 single crochets and an increase 5 times. So in the next stitch we're going to make a single crochet. In the one after this stitch we're going to make another single crochet, and then in the next stitch we're going to make an increase. So 2 single crochets and then an increase 5 times. So we just did that pattern once. So now we need to do it 4 more times. Once you have done it 5 times, you should realize that we still have a stitch here right before the stitch marker. So in this space we're just going to make a single crochet, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. So this is the round complete. For the next round we're going to repeat the pattern of 3 single crochets and an increase. So where you put your stitch marker, we're going to add a single crochet, and this counts as your first single crochet of the round. So you're not going to just put a single crochet in there and then do 3 more. We're going to do 2, so we have a total of 3. So this marks the first stitch of the round. So that's 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to make an increase, and I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing the word increase, and I'm sure you guys know what it means now though. So 2 single crochets in the same space, and now we're going to just do 3 single crochets and an increase, 3 single crochets and an increase, until we reach the end of our round. So I have 1 more single crochet to do before I make my increase. In the stitch right before the stitch marker, we should have ended on an increase. So now in the next round, what we're going to do is do 2 single crochets and an increase to start off with. So here is our first single crochet, and in this first single crochet we need to mark it with our stitch marker, because that is the first stitch of the round. I found that, like, when I first started learning how to do amigurumi, the more the tutorial repeated itself, the more it stuck with me. It was annoying, but we tend to remember annoying things. So yeah, so that is our first single crochet. Now in the next stitch we're going to make another single crochet, and then in the one right after that we're going to make an increase. So 2 single crochets in that same hole. Okay, so once you've done that, we're now going to repeat the pattern of 4 single crochets and an increase 5 times. So I'm going to do it with the first time with you guys because it does get a bit repetitive. So in the next stitch we're going to do 1 single crochet, and then in the next one we're going to do another. Once you have done your 4 single crochets, we're now going to make an increase. And now we're going to repeat this pattern 4 more times of 4 single crochets and an increase. Once you have done that 5 times, you can see that we have 2 stitches before our stitch marker, and in those 2 stitches we're just going to make 2 single crochets. So that's our first single crochet, and then in the next one we're going to do our second single crochet, and that is the round complete. In the next 7 rounds, we're just going to be doing single crochets. This is my favorite part of any amigurumi project because it's just very, very repetitive. So we're going to remove our stitch marker and then put a single crochet in that stitch, and then grab my stitch marker, and then we're going to place it back where it was. And yeah, In every single stitch for 7 rounds, we're going to be making single crochets. So every time you reach the stitch marker, that means your round is complete. So right now we are on round 1, and these are our repeat rounds. So the rounds that we just completed are called your increase rounds, and where you start building up your project, and those are called your repeat rounds, where you just repeat single crochets all the way around. I hope that made sense. And this is where your pen and your paper come in handy. So every time you complete a round, you just want to write down 1 or just a line. You can make a tally so you can help keep track of the rounds that you're on, because there's nothing worse than losing track as you're crocheting. So yeah, I will meet you back once we reach this stitch marker. Just remember guys, just single crochet, no increases, nothing like that. Okay, so this is our first repeat round complete. So we're going to just set this down really quickly, grab our paper and our pen and write down 1. So we have 6 more rounds to go of just single crochets. I will never ever regret learning how to do amigurumi crochet, because I love plushies and teddy bears and toys, and I still have my very first teddy bear, like one of my first teddy bears that's just on my bed. I named her Layla, and I don't think she's been washed in a very long time. She still looks the same from when I had it when I was like 5 years old. But anyways, the point is, like, I love teddies, and I feel like that is just such a memorable gift, especially as a child. You just have something to sleep with, something to play with, something to take with you everywhere. I remember taking my teddies with me everywhere, and now that I have a lot of baby cousins, I can't wait to make them like their first teddy bear, or just a teddy bear made by me that they can treasure for the rest of their lives. Because next time I go to Zimbabwe, hopefully in the summer, I'm going to like batch make so many plushies. And even as a crocheter and you don't want to learn how to do amigurumi, I would recommend learning it anyway, just so you know that you can do it. Because with me, I would never just like stick to one technique. I would love switching through other techniques, especially since this one is so important, because everyone loves teddy bears, everyone loves like toys and animals and everything. So I feel like it's a very important skill to learn, even if you don't use it. Like regular crochet is also very good with your chaining and your double crochets and everything, but this technique, guys, this is such a good technique. Oh my gosh, I can't even express how important it is to learn this. And just keep practicing, guys. You will create masterpieces, either to sell or to gift or just to have for yourself. It's so important to learn, even if you don't use it. So yeah. Okay, so I'm ending round 2 right now of my repeat rounds, so I need to remember to write that down. Okay, that is the end of my round, and now getting the pen and the paper, number 2. Okay guys, so we're gonna just keep doing this process until we reach 7. So yeah, it's very repetitive. So I will meet you guys when we're done, and that's when we're gonna learn how to do a brand new technique. I have 1 more round to complete of these repeat rounds, and one thing that I wanted to say is that you can actually turn this inside out. So this is what the stitches look like on this side, how we're just crocheting normally, but you can just turn your work like this to have the stitches this side. And I know it doesn't really look like a very big difference but on camera, but in person it looks so different. So this, let me just show you guys again. So this is the normal side we're crocheting, and then this is the other side, and I like using this side. So whenever I do my repeat rounds, I just turn my work inside out like this. And for a demonstration, I made this little bunny and I turned my stitches inside out. You can see it's the same pattern, and I just like how it looks this way rather than the other way around. So at this stage, when you're doing your repeat rounds, you can either continue how you were doing it normally, or just turn it this way. It's literally up to you. It will look the same when it's done, so it's not really that much of a big deal in terms of the shape. So if you decide to continue crocheting normally, your shape won't change, but the texture might. But it's all up to you guys. This is all trial and error. This is your project. This is your ball that you're making. You could make one the normal way around and then one inside out, and that will really help with practice as well and just seeing what you prefer. So anyways, we're almost done with these repeat rounds, and then I will meet you when we reach the stitch marker. This is what it should look like once you've done all of your 7 repeat rounds. So now what we're going to do is our decrease rounds. So we're going to do 2 single crochets and a decrease. So like I mentioned before, this is your first single crochet. So in the next stitch, we're going to make a single crochet. So that is our 2 single crochets, and now we're going to make a decrease. So we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, then we're going to go into the stitch right after, pull up a loop, and we should have 3 loops on our crochet hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. So we're going to do this again, but we're going to be repeating the pattern of 4 single crochets and a decrease 5 times. So let's do that one together. So in the next stitch, we're going to make a single crochet. In the one after, we're going to make another single crochet. And then in the next one, another single crochet. And then the one right after, another single crochet. So a decrease is basically joining 2 single crochets together, and it decreases the amount of stitches that you have. So we're going to do this again. So in the next space here, we're going to insert our crochet hook. We're going to pull up a loop. So now we have 2 loops on our crochet hook like this. I'm so sorry, my phone cut out because I ran out of storage. Anyways, in the next stitch here, we're going to insert the hook, pull up a loop, and then now we have 3 loops on our crochet hook. Now we're going to yarn over and pull those straight through, and that is our decrease. So we're going to repeat the pattern like I mentioned before of 4 single crochets and a decrease until we have done it 5 times. So let's just do this one together. Let me just make the 4 single crochets and then we'll do the decrease together since it is a new stitch. Okay, there we go, we have 4 now. Okay, so now in the next stitch, we're going to pull up a loop. Then in the next one right after that, we're going to insert our hook, pull up a loop, and then we should have 3 on our crochet hook, yarn over and pull through all 3, and that is our decrease. So we're going to repeat that until we've done it 5 times. Once you have done it 5 times, we should have 2 stitches before our stitch marker, and in those 2 stitches, we're just going to put in a single crochet in each. So that's a single crochet in the first one. Second one, we're just going to make 1 single crochet. And there we go. This is our first decrease round complete, and it's really beginning to take shape. Now for the next round, we're going to do 3 single crochets and a decrease. So where I just had my stitch marker, I'm going to put in a single crochet and then grab my stitch marker and place it back there into that first stitch. And that is our first single crochet. So now in the next stitch, that is our second single crochet, and then a 3rd single crochet. And now we're going to make a decrease. So insert your hook, pull up a loop, then insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3. So we're going to repeat the process of 3 single crochets and a decrease until you reach the stitch marker. Okay, so I just have a decrease left to make in these last 2 stitches. So I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, next stitch, insert my hook, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Okay, so for the next round we're going to do 1 single crochet and a decrease to start off the round. Let me just hold the yarn properly. Okay, so in that stitch here we're going to make a single crochet, and then I'm going to grab my stitch marker and then put it in there, in that stitch, and then I'm going to make a decrease, and I'm sure you guys know how to do a decrease now. So we're just going to just do that one together anyway. And there we go, we have our single crochet and then our decrease. Now we're going to repeat the pattern of 2 single crochets and a decrease 5 times. So that is 1, then in this stitch that is 2, and now we need to make a decrease. And now we have to do 2 single crochets. And now we need to make a decrease. Like so. And we're going to repeat that until we've done it a total of 5 times. Once you have done that a total of 5 times, we should have 1 stitch before our stitch marker. So in that 1 stitch here, we're just going to make a single crochet. And then that is that round complete. Now for this round, we're going to just repeat the pattern of a single crochet and a decrease all the way around until you reach the stitch marker. So that is a single crochet. We'll do the first one together. So we just did a single crochet and now we're going to do a decrease. So pull up a loop in that next stitch, then in the stitch right after, insert your hook, pull up a loop and yarn over, and there we have our single crochet and a decrease. So we're going to repeat that all the way around. Also guys, if you turn your work inside out, you would have your tail end from your magic circle on the inside, so you don't have to sew anything inside. But if you have it the other way around, you do want to weave in this end, but we don't have to since you know it's on the inside, so you won't see it anyway. When we stuff this ball, I'll just put this on the inside, so yeah, it's not in the way. I am ending this round with a decrease in those last 2 stitches. Okay, and that is the round complete. So now we're going to take a little bit of a break from crocheting and actually start stuffing this ball before we finish it off completely. Okay, so we're gonna grab some stuffing and begin filling this up. So we're gonna, like I mentioned before, we're just gonna put this tail end inside the ball so we don't have to see it. Okay, so now I'm gonna grab a little bit of this stuffing and just start putting it inside. You can use pencils or knitting needles or just something to help you put the stuffing inside if you find the hole a little bit too small. But that's the thing about amigurumi, we have to stuff before we completely finish the project. So usually we start stuffing our work when we have 1 more round left, because the last round is going to completely close your work, so we don't want to be doing that. And yeah, just start stuffing it, putting it in certain areas so it's a nice ball shape and it's really coming together. It's actually so nice, and this is perfect for your first amigurumi project because you learn all of the basics from a magic circle to increasing and decreasing and working in rounds. And you just have to remember that you should keep your tension the same. So as you can see, we cannot see our stuffing, and this is what we want. When I crocheted this Miffy a few weeks ago, my tension was all over the place when I was making the body. As you can see the stuffing on the inside, you can kind of see the stuffing on the head as well. The stitching is just like really loose, and this was very rushed as well. You can even tell by the face it's not really my best amigurumi work. But this is what happens if you don't keep your tension the same. On some areas you can't see the stuffing, especially on the hands and the feet, but mainly on the body, that's where I struggled with my tension. But when I made this bunny, the tension was so even. It was just so perfect. And that is very similar to this ball here, how we have the tension nice and even, and we didn't skip any stitches or anything like that. So it's very important. Even if you have a very loose stitch, you want to take that stitch out and make it tighter, because that's going to ruin your entire project if you just have like a big hole where you can see the stuffing. Unfortunately, in amigurumi there's nowhere you can hide, because at the end of all your projects we do tend to stuff them, so you will see if your stitching was good or not. So yeah, we're just going to continue stuffing this, and I will come back to you when I have finished. Once your ball is nice and stuffed, all we need to do now is 6 decreases. So you don't really need your stitch marker. I think it'll be very easy to just count how many decreases you need. So you're going to insert your hook back into that loop. I hope you guys did not cut it off. Okay, so now we're going to make 6 decreases. So we're going to insert our hook, pull up a loop. Okay, hold on, this loop is very loose. This one here around my hook. Let me just hold this yarn a little bit tighter. Okay, so we're going to insert our hook, pull up a loop, and insert our hook into the next stitch here, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, and then pull that straight through. So we're going to do that a total of 6 times. It's the same as what we were doing before, but it's just a little bit harder because we have the ball stuffed. So yeah. Just going to insert the hook and then yarn over and then pull that straight through, and then we're just going to continue. So I did that twice, so now this is my 3rd time. Okay, so now I'm just going to thread a tapestry needle. And there's not really a set way of closing this. We just want to ensure that it won't come open again. So I'm going to insert my needle into a couple of the stitches around here in the top, and then pull it tight. As you can see, it's already starting to close, and then we're going to just do that one more time. So I just inserted my needle into a couple of the stitches, and then pull this tight, and there we have it. The hole at the top is closed. So now what we're going to do is insert the needle through our project, and then until it comes out on the outside, sorry, and then we're going to just pull that, and that is a way where we just hide the end. And then we're going to cut it very close to our ball, and then just squish it so you can just adjust it. So we're just going to shape it now. And now I'm going to just quickly talk to you guys about some common errors when it comes to amigurumi crochet. So it's very important to use the correct crochet hook. As you can see, I used a 4mm crochet hook, and it's not that bad, but when it comes to the decreases, you can see the stitching. I did this on purpose, guys, by the way. I did this on purpose. I have some other amigurumi work that doesn't have any holes in it whatsoever, so it's very important to use the right crochet hook. So for this yarn, it requires a 3.5 or 3mm, and that becomes very evident if you have the wrong crochet hook when you're doing the decreases, because the decreases are quite visible. It's not that bad with this 4mm crochet hook, but you can kind of see it. That's my entire point. But then on the top you can't really see it, so yeah. Just don't turn your work upside down if you accidentally use the wrong crochet hook. Anyways, here you have completed your first amigurumi projects. You should actually be so proud of yourselves, because it is a little bit challenging when you first start, and now you can go ahead and make a bunch of other things as well. And even if you did not make it this far in the tutorial in terms of making your own ball, you should be proud of yourself anyway if you tried. And a lot of people, they prefer to watch tutorials first and then try, but for me, I like to try while I'm watching the tutorial. But it's up to you, and I know soon, guys, you're gonna master this completely and you can start making a bunch of different unique projects. Alright guys, that is the end of today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I would appreciate any feedback that you guys may have. And as always, I will see you in the next one.